Imagine a tiny strip of land, so narrow and so important that a single river project nearby could spark a full-blown crisis between two of the world's biggest powers. Well, that's exactly what we're digging into today, a geopolitical flashpoint known as the chicken's neck.
It seems pretty straightforward, doesn't it? I mean, it's a project to manage a river. But here's the thing. When that river happens to flow through one of the most strategically fragile and contested regions on the entire planet, well, there are no simple solutions. To really get why, we need to zoom in.
Okay, let's get right into it. The entire conflict, all the tension, it all hinges on a piece of geography that is, frankly, as stark as it is dangerous. So this is the Siliguri corridor, but honestly, everyone knows it by its more vivid and, let's be real, more accurate name, the chicken's neck. It is the one land bridge connecting the bulk of India to its massive northeastern region. Think about that. Every single thing, from soldiers and supplies to trucks and trains, it all has to pass through this tiny, vulnerable sliver of land.
And wow, this map just lays out the problem perfectly. I mean, just look at how precarious this is. You've got Nepal and Bangladesh squeezing in from both sides, creating this natural bottleneck. And then, just over the horizon, looming in the background, you've got China. It's a geographic choke point in the most literal sense of the word.
22 kilometers. That's it. To put that in perspective, that's shorter than many people's daily commute. In military terms, that is practically nothing. A determined force could, in theory, sever this connection, cutting off a huge part of the country. You can see why this single number is a constant source of anxiety for India's defense planners.
So into this already incredibly tense situation, a brand new element has been introduced. And this is the thing that has set off all kinds of alarm bells in New Delhi.
It's called the Teesta River Comprehensive Management Project. Now, on the surface, it sounds like a pretty standard civilian infrastructure plan. It's designed to help Bangladesh manage the crucial Teesta River, which flows down from the Himalayas through India and then into Bangladesh.
But we're not talking about a small undertaking here. We're talking about a project with a price tag of over $1 billion. And it's not just a dam. This thing involves massive dredging, building huge embankments, and reclaiming land. And get this, the funding and the technical know-how for all of it, it's being offered up by China.
Now, the context here is absolutely key, because this didn't just happen in a vacuum. For years, India and Bangladesh have been stuck in a stalemate, completely unable to agree on how to share the Teesta's water. So after years of frustration, Bangladesh has now turned to China, who is more than happy to step in and bankroll this massive project.
Okay, so let's look at a map and see where this project is actually happening. This is the Rangpur division in Bangladesh. The critical thing to remember here isn't just what they're building, but where. And here is the kicker. The project site is located just 30 to 50 kilometers south of India's super vulnerable chicken's neck. That is well within the range of modern surveillance gear and even some artillery systems. And that proximity, well, that changes absolutely everything.
So this brings us right to the heart of India's strategic fears. What was once a threat from just one direction has now potentially become a threat from two.
See, for decades, India has been watching China's military buildup to the north, in a place called the Chumbi Valley, which basically overlooks the corridor. Now they're staring at the possibility of a Chinese presence to the south, right on the corridor's doorstep. It's a classic pincer movement. This map right here visualizes the absolute nightmare scenario for Indian strategists. Pressure from the north, combined with a presence in the south, could theoretically squeeze and completely sever the corridor. That would isolate the entire northeastern region. We're talking about a population of over 45 million people, just cut off from the rest of the country. Now, the big concern isn't that an invading army is going to build this dam. No, it's about something way more subtle, something called dual-use infrastructure. These are projects that look completely civilian on the outside, but can easily be used for military or intelligence work. Think of it like this, a commercial port built for giant cargo ships that just so happens to be deep enough to host a fleet of warships.
So what's the specific fear? It really comes down to high-tech surveillance. India is worried that the personnel and the advanced equipment brought in for this river project could be used to spy. They could monitor every troop and supply movement through that narrow corridor and keep an eye on critical air bases like Bagdogra and Hasamara.
Faced with this new and very real threat, you can bet India has not been sitting idle. New Delhi is actively working to reinforce this vulnerable artery, and they're making some pretty powerful countermoves. Their response is basically threefold. First, they're hardening their military presence, setting up new bases and key spots for better surveillance and a quicker response.
Second, they're deploying some serious assets. We're talking about moving in some of their most advanced weapons, like the S-400 air defense system and BrahMos supersonic missiles, to act as a major deterrent. And third, they're tackling the root of the problem by building redundancy, creating alternate highways and routes through neighboring countries to make sure they're not totally reliant on this one fragile corridor.
You know, when you step back and look at this whole situation, it really shows a fundamental shift in how geopolitical competition works in the 21st century.
This is what analysts call a hybrid threat. The battle for the chicken's neck isn't just about tanks and soldiers anymore. It's being fought with checkbooks, with bulldozers, and with surveillance arrays. In this new kind of warfare, economic influence and infrastructure development are just as important, maybe even more so than traditional military power.
And all of this leaves us with a critical question for the future, doesn't it? In a world where a civilian water project can be seen as a strategic threat, where a construction contract can be just as impactful as a military deployment, the very definition of a border and how you defend it has been changed forever.